Fires a long one.
Oh,
Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of All Nat, brought to you by OTS. I'm your host, Natalie, but most people call me Nat. Hope everyone's enjoying the off season so far. I have two guests with me today. We're going to start with ladies first. My girl, Siobhan.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well.
You guys haven't had the pleasure yet of making Siobhan's acquaintance. So if you're supporting me, you may have seen her when the Hoopstresses took over Brother from Another, or if you've attended any of our spaces on Twitter, you've heard us talking. But Siobhan she has an amazing basketball mind, so y'all are going to love hearing from her. She also hooped. She breaks down film. She covers the Heat as well as the NBA at large. She's also starting to cover the WNBA. Yeah, she does it all. So welcome, Siobhan, to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. Hello, audience.
And someone who needs no introduction, Justin, my Golden Spaces co-host, also on, looking very comfortable right now. Kind of like whatever you did to get in this comfortable mode, I want to like be in it too. Like you're laid back, you're chilling, it's a good look.
Yeah, I'm kind of always chilling, but I guess I'm more so right now.
Extra chill. Okay.
Always a pleasure to be on.
Yeah. And I like the new hair color. It's a good look for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. So I'm not going to start with Warriors right now. I'm going to start with what was the news of the day, which was Kevin Durant will be staying put in Brooklyn. I don't know as Warriors fans that like the Kevin Durant news really impacted us that much, except for the fact that he was once a Warrior. He won titles with the Warriors. And there was some news at some point this offseason that like there was a chance possibly he could come back to the Warriors. That was not something that I wanted or believed. I know Siobhan, for the Heat, it was a possibility, at least early also in the talks, that was one of the teams Kevin may have possibly wanted to go to or was trying to get to. And I know that's something you were open to, right?
Yeah, he said, it's in Phoenix, so let's not maybe possibly wanted to. He wanted. It's fine.
I'm saying I didn't hear it directly from the man's mouth, so I just do that. I'm not saying that as like a shot at Miami. I'm saying that as like,
I know I'm messing
because
you
know how he gets about reporting. Like, did I say that? Did you hear me say that?
No, I was open to it. I was open to it earlier on, in I guess free agency or whatever, and then like as it started to get later into like closer to where we are now. I was like, at this point, you kind of should just ride with what you, not necessarily ride with what you have. Miami, this ain't a Miami pod. I'm not for the running it back, but like make your adjustments elsewhere. And let's just go ahead and get ready for the season. I think that Miami is a group that's kind of swung for the fences before and landed some pretty big gets. And so if there was a group that I think could have done it, it would have been us. But let a certain contingent of Heat fans tell you, we were one shot away from the finals. I beg to think it's a bit more than that. But yeah, I was open to it. Was willing to kind of move the pieces that would have needed to be moved. Like Bam was a piece of contention, which I understand. Might not have would have moved him. Ben can't be on the same team. So there was that whole thing. But yeah, I was open to it. And am also not at all surprised that he's, staying put where he is. So it was cool to play with. And then it got like, okay, I'm done playing with this and happy for you to stay where you at.
Yeah, I was sort of over it as soon as it started. So, but people know that, my feelings on Kevin Durant. So, yeah, I mean, I remember Aman and we were on Brother from Another, and I was like, all right, I'm over the Kevin Durant thing. Like it's just, come on, like free agency is going to be like now at a halt. It's all everyone was talking about. And I mean, the Warriors still made the moves they needed to make, but in general, I mean, I don't know. Like, Pat Bev tweeted today, and I know people are not fans of Pat Beverly, but he tweeted, about like how this transaction or lack of a transaction rather, but how the potential for this to be something kind of like halted or, affected or delayed. I think that's the argument he was making, free agency for certain folks. And so I'm glad it's over because I was just tired of like hearing people talking about it. And in my opinion, like all the drama outside, I always thought like Brooklyn was the best situation for him to be in, like in terms of winning. Like, is there a situation that can be better? Yes, absolutely, but not without them having to give up the pieces to get you. Yeah. And so any team that like he would go to, I felt like they would have been giving up something that necessarily would have just put you in a team that's comparable to Brooklyn. Maybe not like based on the players, but just in terms of like chances and how far they could go. Right. I think being in Brooklyn, like you're probably a top 3 seed in the East, and you never know with injuries how things shake out, and you're still Kevin Durant, So like there's a possible, like you're one of those guys that in theory, if you're on the team and you don't let the Celtics lock you up, that you should be able to contend for a championship, and you have the talent around you. Like I kind of didn't get the whole, like he's like, asking out and like why people thought this. I kind of was like, yo, Kyrie Irving is still there. Ben Simmons has to come back on the floor and play. Like you guys have more talent than other teams, a lot of other teams. Like go out there, play, and see what you can do, because I think winning cures everything. I think they start winning. They're on a hot roll. Kevin goes out and has a few of those 50-point games or whatever he does. Kyrie's doing his thing, and all this shit is going to go out the window. It's going to be like, oh yeah, people were against us, but now, and Kevin Durant's the best player in the world, and Kyrie's the most skilled, and who's stopping? Like all that shit's going to come back, and people are going to, their memories are going to be gone. And then Ben Simmons, he's going to show up, do some nice passes. They're like, see, this is the Ben Simmons we expected. Like, see, we told y'all. And
shady, nice
like, I'm just saying, like, that's what's going to happen. So all of this felt like an unnecessary exercise in futility, but that's my take on the situation. Justin, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did you have any thoughts on it?
No, I agree with everything you guys said. It's one of those situations, like you said, where in order to get him, they had to gut the entire reason that makes these teams attractive to him. Exactly. So it's really no purpose in doing it. And a lot of these teams obviously don't want to mortgage their future for Kevin Durant at this point because, I mean, the injuries that he's been through, his age, and, they just don't feel like it's
fickle nature in general.
For sure.
I think more so that part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, why would you keep, it's Kevin Durant? Yeah, but like the nigga has shown that he's very fickle, like, people are just like, well, when he's not happy next year, I'm like, I hate to break it to y'all, but Kevin was not happy most of the time he was in Golden State either, but he did short-term deals. And I don't know why he didn't
decided to do that, right? That big ass contract.
Yeah, like that was him trying to show like he's committing. And then like 1 year in, and you're like, nope, I'm out. It's like, I don't know. And I just, from a legal standpoint, y'all know how I am. He did not have leverage to be like, bro, you have 4 years left on your contract. Like I get it. You're Kevin Durant. You're a top 3 player in the world, I guess, depending on who you talk to. Some people may think you're still the best player in the league, but like, I'm sorry, like you're not just going to be able to just like get out of like a 4-year contract. And I knew there was no chance that he was going to sit. Like, I'm like, yeah, Kevin Durant is not built like that. It's not even like like he's scared or doesn't have the balls. Like the man just loves basketball too much. Like Kevin Durant loves to hoop. He would die inside watching games go on the court without him. So I just knew there was no chance of like that happening.
Yeah. I think like what Justin said, like everything that makes these teams attractive to him wanting to be there would have had to have been gone to get him there. So now, like kind of to your point, so now we're back at basically a baseline that, like you said, could have been something similar to Brooklyn's. I do think the injury stuff is just a little bit overblown, only because of his style of play. He's not like some ground and pound guy. He's not posting you up. He's not, real heavy on his feet. He's pretty agile, pretty nimble. So I don't give too much credence to the injury part of it, but everything else, like fickle contract, happy one day, not the next, it was a lot that went into it that, like, it's cute on paper, but is it really worth, it in its totality?
Yeah. For me, the injury thing is not his past injuries. It's the current injuries that he gets now. Like, since he's come back, he hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy for like the whole season. But I would say that same kind of durability, like, even though people always talk about Steph not being durable, I would say like Kevin Durant kind of had like a similar past, in the past. He's like missed large portions of the season. He's a pretty frail guy, so like I don't necessarily think the new injuries are connected to his past injuries, but I know for the past 2 years on the Nets, he hasn't played full seasons. I know that. And so
he's getting older.
Right.
I was saying, none of the older guys are playing full seasons.
No, they're not, but I'm just saying that like for I'm saying for him, it's not like I think when people are talking about like injuries, at least for me, it's not about like to me, like I remember like when we were coming into the season and everyone was like, oh, not the season that's starting, but last season, and how everyone just had like the Lakers pegged to win. And I'm just like, and by the way, I used to say the same thing about Brooklyn too. I'm just like, y'all think, and I wasn't because of like Kyrie's like the way he is, like people like to talk about how crazy he is or whatever. I'm like, Kyrie can't really stay healthy, and neither does AD. And I always felt with both of those two players, I'm like banking on them. Like, think about it. The Lakers run when they won the championship, AD had a big ass rest in the middle of the season. Like I get that people are saying like they had the shortened off season, and so that's why they were injured the next year. But in terms of getting there, he didn't play a full season and then make a long postseason run. Like, they haven't demonstrated the ability to do that, and not to do it like consecutively for years and years and years. Kyrie hasn't. AD hasn't. And Kevin Durant, like, he did it sort of with the Warriors, but not really, because he did get injured the first year he was there. Remember, for like a large portion of the season, and then in their postseason run in the third year, he got injured. So when I talk about injuries, that's what I'm talking about. Not the fact that he tore his Achilles, but just that like you're also relying on him, and like his durability has also just kind of proven that it's not as like strong as I think some people make it out to be.
I got you.
Yeah. But whatever. I like it. I'm glad that Brooklyn is staying the way it is. I can stop listening to Lakers fans. With all their crazy proposals. But I don't really care about them. They're just fun to laugh at. But I mean, I like it. To the extent that people want parity in the league, I think this is a better sense of parity than, if something would have changed. But I joke about Brooklyn and Katie and all of them, but I do think, I always thought, even when he wanted to leave Golden State, I always said he should go to Brooklyn. It's the better option than the Knicks in terms of like just the way the organization's run, the potential. Like, you bring a championship to Brooklyn, like, I don't know how people understand what Brooklyn is. Like, that's why I feel like Brooklyn is like Oakland, you know what I'm saying? But it's like on the East Coast, because you have Manhattan, which is a big city, and then you got Brooklyn. That's where all the culture is. And even though most New Yorkers are like Knicks fans, the young kids growing up, and like they're from Brooklyn, like he has a chance to do something there. And I don't know. I kind of like the idea of him embracing that, and like trying to like bring BK a ring. So I don't know.
Same.
Whatever. But obviously,
like
I'm still always rooting for the Warriors.
I don't know that I like him as a person, but like I appreciate Ben Simmons' game. We've seen him be able to
Do
shoot
you?
points before. No, I genuinely do.
Okay.
I really is huge, good defender. He does a lot of things well for some of the things that he doesn't do so well. So I do like that core. And yeah, why not write it out, see what you can do.
I think Justin likes Ben Simmons too. Do you still like him, Justin?
Yeah, I always liked him as a player. When there was, it was tossed up in the air that he could potentially be traded to Golden State, I was one of the people that wanted him there. Now, I'm cool with who we got now, but
Would you still want Ben Simmons? If you could get him, would you want him?
it depends on what the price was. If the price is the same, like if we had to trade like Andrew and some other stuff to get him, then probably not. I think they're cool with who they have now as far as the fit. Everybody is fit in a role perfectly there now. That was a little bit more unclear at the point where he was kind of in those trade discussions. But now it's just a little bit more clear cut. So definitely I'm good off him now. But I like his game. Like I said, like huge perimeter defender. You can't have too many of those type of guys. He puts a ton of pressure on the rim in transition. Hell of a passer. You know what I mean? You pair him next to somebody like KD and Kyrie who can, create even when they don't have a lot of space and hit a ton of tough shots, then it should fit a little bit better than he did in Philly. Um, it's just all about like the other pieces that they have and do they have enough size on the perimeter outside of Ben to be able to defend in the playoffs. I'm not sure if they have that, but those three should fit together if they can play together. They miss a ton of games, but
I'm curious to both of you because you guys both played. How much weight do you give to like the personality aspects though of building a team, right? Because I think oftentimes when we talk about fit, we talk about game, right? Like how their games fit together. But like Justin, one of the main reasons I did not want Ben Simmons and was pretty like against it is because I just think he's problematic from like a personality standpoint. I don't know that I would describe him as fickle because I don't think he's fickle. Like, I think
it's a little
he's a fickle
diva-ish.
person. Huh?
He's like a little like kind of diva-ish. Like
Diva-ish. And I mean, I don't really like to speak about like people's work ethic or how they feel or if they love something without like knowing them personally. So I only know like what's reported, but I don't know. I just did not see him fitting in. And this is kind of like that Heat culture, but like Warriors culture thing, in those ways. I don't know. I did not see him fitting in. And I just thought it could present an issue later, And so and we already have one high maintenance person on the team, which is Draymond Green. And I don't really think you can have that many high maintenance people on a team, to be honest. But I don't know. It always, I mean, you know that, Justin, it didn't like sit well with me. I was like, look, you're smarter than me. So I will defer to you. If you think this is good, I'll like ride with you. But I was like very antsy and I was not a fan of like the idea of Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I can understand that. I guess my point of view, I was thinking of it as kind of like I don't want to call it like a rehab, but like kind of coming to a new situation and having a new perspective on how he wanted to approach the game. I think that's probably what would have happened, especially being around leaders like Draymond and Steph and Clay and Steve Kerr and how they kind of bring anybody and everybody into their culture and just kind of get everybody on the same page. That's one thing Steve Kerr, has done pretty well over his tenure is make sure guys are on the same page when they get on the court. It took, a lot of outside media and KD being on Twitter a lot to kind of infiltrate that and cause some division there. But for the most part, everybody else is kind of falling in line, accepted their role, and just roll with the punches however they came. So I think it would have been okay, but I understand where you're coming from with the stuff that's been reported about Ben.
I think from a Miami perspective, you brought up Heat culture, and I do a lot against fans, because it gets a little weird sometimes. But the parts of it that aren't weird, right? The organizational structure, a discipline, and this is the way that we do things here. If you're going to be here, this is how you're going to do them. And I think people know that enough, or at least have heard about it enough now to know, like, I wouldn't even put myself in position to go to a team like a Miami, like a Golden State, if I were not going with the intent, the readiness to kind of buy in and to do what it is that's been asked of me. I think fit from a personality standpoint is really important, right? Like, people say all the time that, you're on the floor, you're hooping, you're going to do what's asked. Like, you're not gonna let, kind of some, I guess, minor squabbles prevent you from getting the mission done, which is true. The mission should mostly
not
be
in the
true.
case of the Utah Jazz, though.
Should mostly be true. They got a lot happening over there.
We saw that
not
man
anymore.
never assisted to Rudy Gobert. Not just assisted, passed.
Like, we'll just completely look out. Rudy is rolling to the basket, clear as day, just nothing. I'm throwing up 35-foot. I'm in there. But no, I think that I think fit is important in that, maybe it doesn't prevent you from doing things, but it can certainly make things a lot easier. I think you can get more accomplished with a better fit, with guys with personalities that complement one another, guys that are able to be held accountable, and guys that will do the, holding accountable. And I do think that, again, if he were in a Miami situation,
that word you're using, accountability, that's my biggest concern with Ben Simmons. He doesn't strike me as a person who likes to be held accountable or hold himself accountable.
And Kevin and Kyrie are so I don't know, like, Kevin's real, like, that man over there, that's what his decision got going on. They don't really got too much going on. So, like, within that core, who I don't know that group has a leader. I don't know that
he doesn't like to lead.
He doesn't, and that's fine.
He said that in Golden State. He's like, I didn't come here to be a leader.
And I'm really okay with guys. I think people want, like, superstars or big name people to just automatically step into that role of leadership, and that's not reasonable, and that's not fair a lot of times. So I don't know what that group, who's holding all that together. I don't know if Nash is powerful enough to do that. But
they need someone.
They do need someone. They need someone on the floor to do it. It can't just be Nash. It can't be Josiah.
You think someone like a Patty Mills can do that? I mean, I get that he's like coming off the bench, but he's won.
I think
he's been with
coming
the Spurs.
From Spurs, another organization with discipline, and like
he's a vet.
He's a vet, right? It probably. I don't know who. I haven't looked much at the rest of their roster, but it would probably be someone like a Patty. But it is important. You shouldn't let it break you, but it can absolutely, like, make things more contentious than it needs to be. And now niggas is annoyed for no reason, and it's unnecessary.
Well, I'm sure the Nets will be an interesting team for the remainder of the season. I wonder if the league is gonna, like, flex some games now. I mean, they're probably still, like, I don't know, because by mid-season, these guys still might be trading. So, I mean, I know it was, like, all the uncertainty around them why they didn't get a lot of games, but you can imagine, especially if they start playing well, like, I don't know. I wonder if they're going to, like, try to get them some more games. So that would be interesting to see. What did y'all think about Pat Bev's comments? Didn't like them, don't care. Think there's truth to it.
So I think there's truth to it. I don't think he was blaming Kevin, but I think his verbiage could have been easily construed as blaming Kevin, like the whole with this KD shit. Like, you could have phrased that differently to, like, not necessarily make it look like you're putting it on him. But it's it's true, right? Like, front offices aren't making deals because they're trying to see, where this major deal lands, and guys' lives are being held up. People are in real-time suspension, waiting on this one fat ass domino to drop. So I don't have really a problem with it. IT's comment, like, I'm not even gonna do that. Like, I want IT to be on the roster. He's like, can we sign now? Like, were you signing? I hope
Yeah.
so. I want to keep on the roster.
Yeah.
And I don't mean no shade, but like
That was my thought about him too.
but yeah, I was fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with it either. I agree. Like he definitely could have worded it a little bit better, especially knowing how sensitive Kevin is. But yeah, he's right though. Like a lot of people are in limbo right now. So just that whole and for it to end in such an anticlimactic way, definitely just feels like it was all for no reason. So it's kind
They're
of like
moving
just
in
playing with God's
partnership.
money.
Right. What
Right.
does that even mean?
Right.
It's like a
Yeah.
divorced couple, like just choosing to stay in the home just
Right.
because it's easy. What?
Okay. Okay. So speaking of like personalities and fits, um, Stephen A, I don't want to say he dropped some news today because what he was saying isn't actually new, at least definitely not to Warriors fans. But maybe there were like some people outside who hadn't heard this before, but it was about Jonathan Kuminga. And he just said, and it's hard to know if he's like really referring to old stuff or like if it's new or present, but just some talk around Jonathan Kuminga's like attitude and I guess he didn't use the word focus, but just I guess he didn't say work ethic, but it kind of was alluding to that, like putting in the work, things like that. Um, so I don't know. So he was just saying, like, you know, he's just been hearing some things and like, but he's a fan of Kuminga, so he wants Kuminga to get it together. But we've heard about this before, and I get very I don't know. I guess my initial kind of like reaction is always to kind of, for the most part, defend the guys on my team. Um, and I really don't like when Kuminga was coming out and a lot of the stuff people were saying about him was sort of around like motor work ethic. And a lot of times these are these like draft analysts who often are not Black. And so I tend to feel like that's how like Black young players are discussed a lot. I mean, they said the same thing about Ant Edwards, right? And he's incredible. So I kind of always take that with a grain of salt. And then you kind of heard Warriors like reporters, like people who I more rely on, kind of alluding to it on pods, like, you know, Slater, but no one really explicitly saying what the issue is or may be. But there's something that I've noticed from fans where like they're kind of like, I don't like Kuminga's attitude, like he shows it on the court, or you know, he just needs to like even when you get into the whole discussion of like whether Andrew's going to be there long term, and sometimes like that natural conflict between his role and trying to like, you know, develop Kuminga, and they're just like, well, he's a rookie, or he's this, like he just needs to accept it. And I'm just like, I get like how Stefan is as a leader. So I feel like that's in a way spoiled the fan base a little bit, right? Because to me, he's more of like a Tim Duncan kind of leader. And even the other greats who we acknowledge, like Michael and Kobe's, they weren't those kinds of leaders, you know? Right. They were very different. I don't think Steph and Tim Duncan are the norms. I love it. I love that the leader of the team that I am a fan of is like that. But I don't think that that's the norm. And I don't think that we should expect. I'm not saying that people are expecting for Jonathan Kuminga to turn into Stephen Curry, but I don't think that we should expect like every player to have that same kind of mindset and personality like him. And I just feel like if you kind of know his background, where he came from, what it took for him to get here, I sort of on some level understand if he might feel hungry and want his chance and want to get on the court, because also that's what his counterparts are getting. Like the other people who are drafted in the same range as him, right? They're getting to play, they're getting to be on the court. He kind of came into a unique scenario and he's still very young. So I kind of feel like we should show him some grace, but I don't know enough. I don't know enough detail to really speculate too much further. So Siobhan, I am curious to get your thoughts on this, but Justin, what have you heard anything else, or like, is there more that you've heard about that I haven't mentioned?
No, it's just been like you said, like a few Warriors, like insiders that may allude to it every now and then. Like you said, it did come up in the pre-draft stuff, and you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But then once you hear it resurface with people that's close to the team, then it's kind of like, all right, a little bit worrisome. But you also understand the circumstance. You understand that he's a young kid and he's very, very confident. And like you said, not everybody is wired the same as the people who aren't as outwardly confident to that point. So like you said, you just gotta give him some time and see how it goes. I don't think it'll be like a huge issue, like I said, because the leaders that are around him and the coaching staff that is around him, and especially if guys like Andre stay close to the team, he's really good at being able to reel in those personalities. As you can see, he did it with Jordan a little bit, who I'm sure thinks of himself as a superstar in this league,
Yeah.
and he kind of puts into perspective his role in the team and how the bigger picture is just them competing for championships for as long as they can. So I think he'll be fine. It's just, it's one of those things. And it's funny because you kind of contrast that with Wiseman, who in the same breath is watching his peers who he came into the league with kind of ascend into superstardom with Ant Edwards and LaMelo Ball. And on the flip side, instead of kind of looking at it the way Kuminga looks at it, like I think I'm just as good as them. There's been talks about how he kind of struggled with his like self-confidence and coming back from injuries and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see how both of those guys kind of navigate their viewpoints of their certain situations, and kind of try to blend it in with the team and their ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, Wiseman is in a tough situation, right? Because of the way that LaMelo popped and the Warriors having the chance to have drafted him and didn't. So, I mean, the man deactivated his Twitter. I mean, like people were relentless, and I feel really bad for him. So I do think he's in the best possible situation in terms of like an organization that can help him manage that. But it's people forget like these guys are young. I know they're tall and they look like grown men, but they're kids, man.
Babies. I, I'll ask the both of you. I know you're saying things have been alluded to, but could you speak with maybe a little more specificity? Like what are some of the things being said? Because I
Like,
They literally don't say much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is a direct quote, but it's been said like, according to Kuminga, like he never makes a bad play. Like if you ask Kuminga, he never takes a bad shot. That type of thing.
Those types of things are worrisome.
Yeah.
That's
right. So it's been kind of like, I know I've heard that specific sentence a few times, but it's pretty much like in that ballpark where it's like he thinks he's like the shit pretty much, and it's like that type of confidence that probably got him to where he is now.
Right.
Obviously, he's tremendously physically gifted, but having that belief in himself is what got him to where he is. But they're trying to navigate that and kind of help him reel it back a little bit and understand his place in the hierarchy of the team.
If it's a matter of confidence, then I don't think that that's an issue. If it is a matter of an excessive amount of confidence, and therefore I don't feel like I need to put as much work in because I'm just naturally gifted, I'm naturally talented, I'm naturally more explosive than the people I'm going up against, I think that's where you would probably have more cause for pause. But yeah, like everyone isn't wired like a Steph, wired like a Tim Duncan, and I like what Justin said, isn't as outwardly confident, isn't as outwardly expressive, um, or for over consistent amount of time. Like Steph has his shimmy and his bursts and stuff, but you don't just see him being just that vocal in that way all of the time. And like I said, these guys are young, and everyone can come into the league or whatever and say, I want to win. I want to win, right? And now you're in a winning ass situation, and sometimes it does become other things. Like I want to be able to showcase that I can contribute to this winning situation, and I get that, and I don't have an issue with that. I want guys, I want girls, I want people that want to be a part of a situation that's good. but also want to, help elevate that. And so as long as he doesn't let that slide into his work and into his preparation, and he's not taking care of his body, working on his skills and those types of things, then I think that's where you have the issue. Stuff like, I never make a bad pass or a wrong play. That coupled with some confidence stuff, coupled with some not willing to work on it types of things, I think then that can kind of snowball into some other stuff. But if it's just a matter of, I know that I'm good and I want to help this group and like show that I'm good, then I don't know that I have a problem with that until it starts affecting the way that we function as a whole.
Yeah, and that's what I'm unclear about, because it felt like today that's what Stephen A was saying, like that he may not always be putting in the work he needs to, and I'm not sure if that's true.
And if that's a thing, again, you can just be just naturally talented, naturally more gifted, but guys who maybe aren't as talented, aren't as gifted, who work at the gifts that they do have and add some skills and all that shit like that can kind of creep up on you and catch up on you.
For sure. Well, for one, it's still Stephen A saying it, so I still have to take it like.
And yeah, and to be fair, that is kind of like what they were alluding to earlier on. I think I'm already great, so I don't need to, and even Marcus Thompson has kind of alluded to this. He hasn't outright said it, but he's made a few statements saying like, I don't, like, Jonathan Kuminga just feels like I'm already better than these dudes, so everything that follows is how I'm gonna kind of carry myself, right? And there's two ways you can approach that. You can go like kind of like the Kobe way, where it's like, all right, I'm just gonna prove through my work ethic that I'm so much better than everybody, or you can say like, I'm already better than everybody. You can see how the highlight dunks that I'm doing, and I'm putting up 20 points in 10 minutes of garbage time because it's that easy for me. So I don't really need to, approach the game in that way. So I guess we just got to wait and see. Hopefully this is not even a conversation by, training camp anymore, but I guess we got to see.
And the things that make life on the floor easy for him is just this freakish otherworldly, athleticism. But hone that, like, wishing no injuries on nothing, not at all. But like not in the event that your athleticism gets taken away, I know he's still super young, but like, what else are you doing with that? Are you letting it make you a better ball handler? Does it give you more elevation on your jump shot? Are you working on these things to like do that? Or are you yamming on people and I'm just naturally quicker to the ball and springer, so I can get 20 points in 10 minutes of garbage time because I'm getting offensive rebounds. So I don't know all of how his points come. I know what his body feels like to me and how I feel like he should be weaponizing it. But you can't let that keep you from working, because you get overtaken by people who might not be as talented, but like, I'm gonna work harder than you.
Yeah. We know about that athleticism once that starts to fade, Russell Westbrook. So,
Oh, poor guy.
Whoa.
Unnecessary.
Crazy straight.
Right.
Crazy straight.
Did I say anything incorrect?
No.
Okay. All right. As long as I wasn't being unfair. Listen, I'm just saying, like that, like, to me, he's an example of one of those kinds of players, I'm not saying I'm not talking about worth ethic or anything like that, but just like where maybe parts of his game, because I've never heard anything like that. Russ doesn't want to put in work, but you do hear like things on the Lakers. And again, it's hard because things come out of there, and depending on who's reporting it or who's leaking the information, it's going to be biased, but kind of like, his unwillingness to go to the bench, and he doesn't think he needs to do these, like, and a lot of that comes from his time in OKC, where like him and Kevin Durant kind of got to just do in a way what they wanted, like when the media criticized them a little bit, right? The team contacted them to like take it out the paper, right? So, which is why to me, they are the way they are as they leave and they go to these other organizations. Because to me, I think that those are things you got to kind of like nip in the bud early, you know? So, okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit because there's also been a really interesting topic that's been trending. And it got sparked by a conversation Taylor Rooks had with Jason Tatum. So I haven't heard the full interview, and I was really trying to listen to it before I came. Did the full interview come out? Because I know initially it was just snippets, and have either one of you listened to the full interview?
I haven't heard the full interview. I saw a tweet alluding to it, so I guess it's out. It's something is like, yo, if you listen to the whole thing, it's even more wild or whatever. But I haven't heard the whole thing, and I just heard the clip today, a little while ago.
Have you watched the full or heard the full interview, Justin?
Okay.
Yeah, I would really be curious, like the context, the rest of the conversation.
Because I need to know the full context before like I'm willing to like criticize anything. But let's start with the initial conversation, which was because I think like Jason Tatum like asked Taylor, like, is Dame a superstar? Would you consider him a superstar? Like something along those lines, because they were talking about like superstars. And she was saying like, well, he's a little different, and like kind of talking about the fact that like he needs to win, you know, or she takes into account winning, you know, stuff like that. And there was like all these debates about whether Damian Lillard is a superstar, and you know, and then of course people took that as a reason to like kind of go at Taylor, which I do not like. So, you know, like, you know, no offense, Justin, but like men say stupid shit all the time on TV, a lot of these people, and it's like, y'all don't go this crazy about them. Like Taylor doesn't need to lose her job just because you don't agree with her take. She doesn't need to get back in the kitchen. She didn't just get to where she got because she's attractive. Like she has put in the work. So I'm always going to stand up for Black women, and I didn't love that part, but I thought the conversation was interesting because I think this is one that comes up all the time about like, what is a superstar and how do we define them? And I think my parameters are much more rigid than others. To me, there are only 3 superstars in the league, and that's Steph, LeBron, and KD, in my opinion. But I don't think that means like, I think Giannis is like the same like tier level player as those guys. I think, you know, there are some people who might consider him the best player in the NBA, but I think they're a different level of superstardom than like he is, or even like a Kawhi. I really don't even consider a superstar, but like a superstar, or like a Dame, and certainly not a Kyrie. And I get that Kyrie is popular and he sells sneakers, and I heard people talking about stuff like that, but I still don't like, when I think of superstars, I think of like, does my grandmother know who you are? Like, does like a little old like random person somewhere, like, would they know you? So, and that it's almost like they're rock stars, right? So that might be like an extreme definition of like superstardom, but that's how I look at it. So to me, those are the really only true superstars in the league. But I know that my definition is pretty restrictive. So I'm curious, Siobhan, to know your definition of a superstar, and Justin, yours, and then we can talk about like the players who might be. I do not consider Dame Lillard a superstar. And I don't agree with Taylor's reasoning, but I do think like superstars have to have a certain level of like winning and success. I do agree with that. I don't know that I feel like they have to win championships, but that's also just not the only reason why I wouldn't say that about Dame. Like you know, like Dame is an interesting person because of like how people ranked him, but like, I'm not sure that I ever even think that Dame has been like a top 10 player. At best, he's been 10th best. You know, like I think he's kind of like a fringe top 10 player. So there's also just like his level and ability, you know. And in my mind, I also think a superstar is probably a number one option. And there are some people who might think like Dame is, but in my opinion, he's probably best as like your number two guy. So those are just some of my own thoughts about Dame specifically, but I've never considered him a superstar, but I think he's a great NBA player. So those are my thoughts on the topic, but I really want to hear what you guys think.
Justin, you give your parameters.
Okay. So I understand where you're coming from that as far as like popularity is concerned, as far as superstardom, like you said, rock star. And I agree pretty much like it's those three if you look at it that way. My personal like parameters is like can can you lead a team to a championship, right? Do you have the ability, talent, whatever the case may be, to be the best player on a championship team? Um, so, should I give like who I think that is, or
Yeah, go ahead.
so I mean obviously Steph, LeBron, and Giannis have done that already. KD arguably has
I
done
like
that,
that.
right?
Arguably, yeah.
Cute.
Kawhi has done it. I think Jokic is good enough to do it. It would have to be, a very specific situation as far as like getting some more defense around him to cover up for his deficiencies. But I think offensively, he's talented enough to be able to do that. Same thing with Luka Doncic. Um, who am I missing out? A lot of people won't agree, but I do think Jimmy is good enough. We've seen
Butler?
it
Cut
for
it
sure.
out.
No,
For
I will
sure.
not cut it out.
The thing
I
with
will
Jimmy,
not.
the,
I'm
the
sorry.
thing with Jimmy is like
I will not.
he does have
I
games in the playoffs
strongly
where he
disagree.
doesn't. He does have games in the playoffs where you feel like, all right, he's probably not quite on the level of those guys, but he also
No.
has games where you're like, yo, he's like on those guys. Like he's at
Good
like
for
40
him.
point triple
Dame
doubles.
has those games. They all have those games.
I don't think,
Not in
but
the
the thing
finals,
with
not
Dame,
close to the finals. No, Dame
for sure,
has it.
Close to the
right.
finals. I don't
And
care where it is.
the thing with Dame, and also with Jimmy, like he plays both sides of the ball extremely well. The thing with Dame is like at his peak offensively, for sure, but defensively, I think what
No.
he gives up with his size, he's never quite been there. I think Steph is the only person like at that size who's been good enough defensively to be able to, offset any type of, issues that he might have with that. So yeah, it's pretty much Steph and like all of the 6'8" superstar wings of the league, plus Embiid and Jokic and Giannis, I would say. So that's probably about 9. I think Tatum
Do
is
you
about
think
there.
Embiid is good enough to do it?
I think so. And it's like I hate grouping
I
all of them
can't put Tatum
together.
in there. I'm not putting him in there either.
I mean, to be fair, like if Steph doesn't go crazy in Game 4, Boston potentially goes up 3-1,
Yeah, but that wasn't
and
because
they
of
could have won. It wasn't directly because of Tatum, but
Tatum
he
was.
technically
Come
wasn't resting.
on, Justin. That was not a good finals performance from him.
It
And
wasn't. I think it started out better than it ended for sure. I think the last few games he kind of just like ran out of gas, but he was okay in the first few games. Like he was bad by his standards, but I think if they end
he
up
was really
winning that,
great playmaking. Was that game 1?
yeah, game. I mean, I think that was by design by the Warriors defense,
Right.
but I think based on ability, he is good enough. He did go into Giannis's house and put 46 on the boys and
He for
pretty
sure
much saved their
did.
season. Like I think he
He's like
two-way,
a
he can
Jimmy to
score, he can play
me
make.
when you say like he has those moments
Right.
where he
And
showed, but it's not consistent enough for me to consider him like a tier 1 guy.
and that's why I think it's better to put players in tiers, and it's hard for me to kind of group all of them in together as just like the term superstar, because a guy like Giannis or Steph or LeBron at his peak needs a little bit less than a guy like Embiid or even Jimmy or Tatum might need around them. I think those guys, when you get to the tip top of the league, can do so much that the talent around them doesn't need to be quite as high. They have less weaknesses in their game. So you don't need to supplement Jason Tatum's gifts with another ball handler because he's not the best at making decisions with the ball, that type of thing, right? Or Jimmy might not be as reliable as a high volume scorer over the course of a full series. So you might need to supplement some more scoring around him, for whatever reason, right? So I think those guys technically are still superstars because I think in the perfect situation, you can win a championship with those dudes as your best player. It's harder to get that situation than it is with
So Jimmy
Steph
over
and
Paul George?
I think so,
Yes.
yeah.
No. Okay.
I think so.
No.
And I like Paul
cannot
George.
accept
but
I
it.
wanted to play with Jimmy first. Jimmy said, no, I'm going to Miami. Then he hit Paul George.
Great. Good. I don't care. I'm sorry. I will never be on this Jimmy thing. I do not know. Like Jimmy's
I just
great,
don't
but
think
no. But
I
everyone
don't
else,
think Paul
okay.
George. I think Paul George is probably a little bit more talented as a scorer because of his shooting ability. I don't think he is as good with the playmaking and the making the teammates better around him aspect of it. And I think that's a huge thing you need as far as like being a number one guy. That's why I think he's best as a number two guy next to someone who can, do that type of stuff, heavy lifting for him.
I agree. I just don't think
He's
Jimmy's
right
the
there,
number
though.
one guy either. That's my take. And I put
I don't
That's
either.
fair.
and
But
I
that's
and I think I would take Paul George over Jimmy, but there are people who think really highly of Jimmy. You're clearly one of them. There are others. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, y'all. I cannot get here. I can't. Sorry. Forgive me, Siobhan.
No, it's fine. So I think, so for me personally, I feel like even just kind of not saying like anything bad about how you gave your definition, Justin, but I think people use a lot of different words interchangeably and they shouldn't. I think a number one option and like a superstar don't have to be the same thing. I think a superstar and a star are a bit different. And as I guess unfair or, whatever it may be, at least how it's perceived, I think there is some level of popularity that does come with superstardom. Stars to me, Justin, are I don't even know how I would necessarily define my stars, but I think everything that comes with being a star and a certain level, yes, of popularity elevate dudes into superstar status, or at least that's how it feels like it's perceived. But there's so many kind of fluctuating variables, like one might not have this, but they have that. And so that elevates them a bit more into superstardom. Person B might not have as much of this, but has more of that and can kind of fit, right? So you said like Steph and a bunch of the 6'8" people. I think kind of automatically dominant looking figures are going to be perceived as having kind of more superstar abilities. Whether people want to give it to him or not, I think, Giannis, freak, right? He is going to be looked at as someone who, if not isn't already, then certainly should be throughout the course of his career, work himself into something like a superstar, right? Someone like a Jokic who is skilled, phenomenal. People won't even give him like credit of being MVP because they just don't feel comfortable giving it to like kind of this big doughy white guy, and people don't want to say it, but that's what the vibe gives. But I don't know if people would consider him a superstar, but he has the superstar talent capability types of thing, but I don't know if he has superstar popularity. Jimmy PG.
That's a good distinction that you're making. Superstar talent versus superstar popularity.
And I think, and then I don't know that it gets distinguished enough, right? So like, I think Jimmy has superstar talent. I genuinely do, but Jimmy is not popular. Jimmy is not superstar popular, although he finished last season with his jersey top 10 in sales. Steph being, and I'm not even giving Jimmy propaganda. Like I give Jimmy his warts where he has them, but he is developed so much more offensively that it's rounded out the rest of his game for me. Someone like a Steph with this like crazy amount of offensive just gifts, and is short, and so has leveraged his gifts and worked himself up into like this megastar that he is. I think Steph is clearly a superstar. LeBron is clearly a superstar. KD superstar, someone with some certain level of like diva-ish to them. Feels like some of that can get kind of thrown into the superstar pot. Dame and Kyrie. So I don't know that Kyrie is. I think Kyrie can be your number one offensive option. I don't think he can be your best overall player on the team, though, but I do think he has a level of superstardom to him. Be it offensively talented, shoes do matter. The having hit big shots in really, really big moments, like the shot in at Golden State.
That's one shot. How long
It
are we
is.
gonna
It
hold
is.
on
No,
to
no,
that?
no. And I it's not everything, but it was a like very, very important
Major
moment.
shot, but I just feel
Major
like
moment.
that's all people can go to. I actually think
Fair.
that Kyrie's
Fair.
performances in the postseason have been like mid.
Right. Right. And
Like,
so that's
he's
so
really
like,
inconsistent.
so his superstar like playing ability might not be up to par with what people give him with regards to superstar popularity. Dame, I don't think Dame can be your best player on the team. I think he can be your number one option. I also don't think Dame is a superstar. He's probably like the first of the fringe guys for me, between him and JT, because I'm not giving that to JT yet either. I really have a hard time giving it to like a bunch of the babies. I'm not giving it to Ja yet. I'm still not giving it to cats like Cat, who probably should be. I think Embiid should be a superstar. I think Embiid can be your best player. Embiid should be dominant. And just his persona should elevate him kind of into some superstardom. So I think it has to be kind of taken at a case by case basis. And people don't like that. Yeah, I don't know that you have a baseline to kind of go off of it. I think market kind of matters too, right? Like Dame has decided to spend his whole life in Portland. Well, you don't have help there, you're not winning there, and you seem to be closer to one trick as a pony than having multiple tricks as a pony. So I don't think that helps you. Giannis is in Milwaukee, like, no shade to them, but Giannis is in Milwaukee, but he has everything else that kind of rounds out his case. So I think that, for me at least, there's a lot that goes into it. My personal superstars, I have Steph, LeBron, KD. I have Giannis. I think those might be it. I think Luka can get there. As much as I don't necessarily be wanting to give him credit for stuff, I do think he has the talent, the size, the gifts, the persona. He's foreign. I think he can kind of play himself into that. So for me, it wavers and kind of fluctuates. Dame versus Kyrie, I would say Kyrie has that edge for me, though. But again, I think superstar versus being your number one option versus being like your best player aren't always the same thing.
Yeah, I think with the Kyrie Dame stuff, I think it depends on like what role they are on the team. Like, if they're my two guys and one of them has to be my number one, I'm going with Dame over Kyrie. But if
Your
you're
number
talking
one, see, even that, your number one, what? Like your number one,
my number one option, like if he's my best player, period, either, I'm still going with Dame. If you're telling me that Kyrie and Dame are my second options, then I'm probably going with Kyrie, but I may still go with Dame just because like Kyrie's just a lot to deal with. And I may not want to like deal with all of that. But I mean, I think Dame has demonstrated that he has a bigger impact on winning. And I it's kind of like with Giannis, right? Like, I mean, just before I came on to record, I'm in a group chat with some people. And one of them is very bag Twitter, like he's not on Twitter at all, but he's definitely like bag Twitter. I'm saying that so you understand like his philosophies on basketball. And so, I mean, he thinks that Giannis is unskilled, and like an unskilled person can never be the best player in the NBA, which is lunacy to me, right?
He's not unskilled, but he is still really raw.
No, by the way, Justin will tell you, I like I'm not a fan of Giannis's game on any level. So it's crazy when I have to come on here and because I'm not, I do think the others are more skilled, but I think we lose sight of when Kevin Durant gets swept in the first round and people are still telling me he's the best player in the NBA. Like, that's silly to me, right? Like, I get that it's a team sport. I understand that. And I get that the other players matter. But to me, there are certain players that impact winning in a certain way that other players don't. And I feel like other players, we get very caught up in like their bags, all these skills they possess, what they can do in a one-on-one environment. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit Kyrie does, because you know what? It does not impact winning. He's only won when he was next to LeBron James. He did not do that on the Celtics. In fact, they didn't do much when he was on the Celtics. They did make the postseason, but he was not great come the postseason. I know he got hurt, but his people, they really need to go and look at Kyrie's like postseason stats and numbers. Like, he's very like inconsistent and like all over the place. And so I just don't think that he impacts winning the way that like a Dame Lillard does, even if he is more skilled. And so I just care about the end result, you know, like having all those individual skills, they matter to me, but to like an extent, you know? So like, can I say that Kyrie's probably more talented than Dame? Sure. But I'm probably still going to lean Dame just in terms of like his ability, I think, to impact winning more. That's where that's where I land with like a player like him, but that's like in general how I look at like a lot of these things, right? And so and when it comes to like, because look, there's these superstar conversations also can like go in other places, right? This is how people end up talking about like face of the league and like all these different things. But I get the markets thing, and I get like the need for like the league to push things, but we've seen the league try to push and force players on us, and like it doesn't
keep trying to force the Knicks on us,
right? And it doesn't work. Like the market, the people who will tell you who they want. I always like Steph as like an interesting case study, because the NBA didn't start off pushing Steph. Like right now, people look at him and they're just like, oh, the NBA, they're golden boy, they're in love with him. The NBA is not pushing Steph. Like, he forced his way into the conversation, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I just feel like when you are really skilled and when you impact winning and when you have that kind of appeal, it's just going to be organic. And the like if you look at like the history of like basketball, right? Like you look at someone like, let's say, a Magic Johnson, he just was very like charming, right? Like the like people loved him, like his smile, his personality. I mean, he was kind of actually a dick behind the scenes, but what he presented to the public, people loved, right? Or if you look at like a Michael Jordan, he had like this like athletic, like just appeal that we've never seen before, right? Like supernatural. Then you have like LeBron, he's like this physical specimen. I'm just like naming players, but like to me, there's a lot of things about like appealing to the masses. So I like that distinction you make about superstar popularity, because I do agree that like Kyrie probably has like, or at least at one time had superstar popularity. He's very popular, but I don't think he has superstar like, he probably could if he was a different person, right? Because he's very talented, but I don't put him like with those other guys, and I don't put Jimmy there. But like the rest, I probably don't put Luka or Embiid on the same category with the others either, just slightly below. But like if they were all 1A, I would say like Steph, Katie, Giannis, probably healthy Kawhi. They're all probably like 1A guys, right? And then I would say like Luka and Embiid are like 1B guys, right?
Are you talking about in talent? Are you talking about
talent?
Okay.
Talent. Yeah. I mean, popularity is like, I think Embiid is pretty popular, but I mean,
Kawhi is not like 1A popular.
No,
but
not
in
at all.
terms of ability, I got you.
Right. Like, and yeah, just in terms of ability. And I think again, some of that's about like your game, right? Like Kyrie has a very flashy style of play, which is appealing. So like when people will be like, oh, you're gonna miss LeBron James when he's gone. I'm like, I won't. I don't even enjoy watching LeBron play. And people like get upset with me and they're like, you're just a hater. Okay, fine. But like, just like I don't enjoy watching Giannis play, right? But I acknowledge that both are great players. Like the way that they hoop is not an appealing brand of basketball that I like to watch because I like finesse players, right? So but I can still distinguish between like what I like and then like what's greatness. So like I know LeBron is an all-time great and he's one of the greatest, but I just don't really get joy out of like watching him hoop. There are just other people that I prefer like to watch hoop more. So someone like Kawhi, I think a lot of people think like Kawhi's game is boring, right? Because it's just like steady and you know the way Kawhi plays, but he's a great player.
So not asking you to make a case, but what is your case against Jimmy? Because people don't enjoy watching Jimmy play, but he has very much those same very steady on both sides of the ball. I've worked myself into even being as capable as I am now. I came into this roughing dudes up, like I'm defending very much like a Steph didn't come into it as the face that he is, having worked himself to the face. I think Jimmy has worked himself to kind of where he is. So again, not asking you to make a case for him, but what is your case against him?
So, I have a lot of Jimmy believers in my life. So what I'll say is I'm going to, for now, table my view of Jimmy and pay a little bit more closer attention to him for this upcoming season. But I would say to this point, it would be his offensive side of the game. And I know you guys are saying that it's gotten better, but I just don't feel like it's consistent enough for me to feel like he can score. I know that he can put the ball in the hoop. It's not that I don't think he can. And I know his name is Jimmy Buckets, which is so funny because he does. He really hits like some.
Genuinely never understood it. He's having to fight for these buckets.
No, but he really does hit some clutch and big shots, right? It's crazy. Well, like, I mean, because this is going to sound like I'm comparing Jimmy to him, and Jimmy's clearly a better player, but it's like Marcus Smart. He just hits like some fucking shots. Dylan Brooks and Marcus Smart are probably a better comparison. Like these dudes just hit shots at times where I'm just like, what? Like, why are you making these shots now? But Jimmy Buckets, it's just, I don't know. There's just not a sense like a security that I have with him that I do with like other players, but I think it's really more though about the offensive side of his game is what I'd say. It's not about like his defensive.
He doesn't have like a glaring offensive advantage, right? Where you can see, you look at to a guy like Steph, Luka, Jokic, like their skill set is so far out of this world, right? Handle, shooting ability,
right?
Or you look at like a Giannis or a LeBron, where like their athleticism and their strength and being able to, Kawhi, even his strength gets him to anywhere he wants on the court. And Jimmy's a strong player, but you don't look at Jimmy's game and say like that is why he is so like good. You know what I mean? Like it's his shooting ability, it's his handle. Like you can't really point to one thing with Jimmy. That's why it gives you the feeling of like kind of like Marcus Smart, Dylan Brooks. It's like, how are you scoring, bro? Like, but he ends up scoring. Even his midi is money in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like,
it is. You're right about that.
Kawhi wasn't offensively gifted. He worked himself into being a better offensive player.
He did
for sure.
And I'm a huge Kawhi fan.
Yeah, and even Kawhi's jump shot is like it used to look a little wonky, but now it looks kind of textbook. Whereas Jimmy, his arms kind of cocked to the side a little bit, so it just looks very unconventional. That's why
Him
I
missing
think it's
that
a little
three
bit.
didn't help his case for me either.
He shouldn't have took the three. Go to the basket. Give me a midi. Give me this. Why take that shot? I'm still mad. Everybody, oh, that was the right play. We was tired. Fuck that. Go to the basket.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that. Listen, last thing, because like we're basically been on for an hour, but I'm just curious. The league released the schedule, so I don't know. Are there any like marquee or games or just matchups that you guys really want to see? I don't know, like Siobhan, for you from a Heat perspective, do you want any revenge on any teams? Or just anything that's happened, any players that you're really interested in seeing what next season's gonna look like for them? Maybe Tyler Hero, anyone else?
So from my own team, it's a bunch of dudes I need to see show up. This is not a Heat pod, so I'm about to go ahead and just kick my shoes off and give my rip. I need Bam to step up. I know Bam is taking marginal leaps, whatever. He has too many tools in his bag. He has too many theoretical like advantages to not be ready to be putting this shit all together now. I need to see Bam step up. I need to see Tyler. I think Tyler could have helped us in the Boston series. I've said it multiple times. I genuinely do. Kyle Lowry done got slim, so people keep telling me that he's first ballot Hall of Famer. And like
I could call him Slim this year. Hey, Slim.
He's still slim thick. He's still slim thick still. So from a Miami perspective, I got a few guys that like I'm on this year. Matchup wise, I do want to see our first game against Boston because I genuinely think we gave the Boston series away just by not being able to hit shots. I understand Boston defense is what people want to say that it is. Miami got to spots, makeable spots consistently and just did not. That one game where we didn't score for like the first 8 minutes or some NBA record or something absurd. So I want to see kind of our first Boston game. PJ left, went to Philly. That'll be fun. Those games. I want to see our first, I genuinely want to see how we play against Golden State because people probably aren't going to believe it or want to hear it or not. I think the Golden State series could have been more competitive than people, I think, just want to assume that it would or would not have been. I want to see some Miami Bulls games. From outside of Miami, I want to see the Golden State Grizzlies games. Not Grizzlies, I'm sorry. Yeah. The Golden State Memphis games. There's a lot of fun and juice into those veins and that blood. There's a lot that I'm just wanting to. If Miami shits the bed this season, listen, I'm starting a Pelicans podcast because Brandon Ingram has been my boy since his second year. They got my guy an adult wing. No shade to Josh Hart, but they got him, a CJ who you would kind of like. CJ McCollum is what you would hope Josh Hart's ceiling was.
So I think they're great in the postseason. I hope.
Who?
CJ. Yeah.
No, but he would still need it, integrating.
To get adjust. Yeah.
I hope Zion is like ready to go. I love New Orleans's front court, all of their bigs, all of their forwards. So I'm just really interested in this season at large. It's really like put up or shut up with a lot of people from Miami for me. And that's going to extend to a lot of Miami fans because y'all are insufferable sometimes. So I'm just excited overall about kind of the landscape, and I want to see what Brooklyn does, right? Y'all had this whole hoopla. What's that going to look like? Ben, how do you look? James Harden, you look a bit smaller. What do you look like? So just guys that have put in some physical transformation.
Luka too, apparently.
Yeah, Jason Tatum, he put on some weight. Like his head looks weird now between his shoulders are so much bigger. So I want to see how dudes look coming into this season just overall.
Okay. All right. What about you, Justin?
Yeah. I know we say this every year, but I just want to see everybody healthy so we can like actually see these matchups and like the players are playing. But I guess I go outside of Golden State. I'm really excited to see how the Pistons look. I really like Kate Cunningham. He's one of my favorite young players in the league. So I really want to see how his game matures and how he makes a leap from year one to year two. OKC, I want to see how they just got the youth movement there. So I'm really excited to see how they play. And as far as the Golden State matchups, definitely the Grizzlies. Just want to beat up on them
Man, fuck
all
them
year.
Nicholas, yo.
Exactly, which is why I want to see y'all say "fuck these niggas" and like keep stepping.
Yeah, I just want to just keep
Stand
pressing
them.
them. Like, yeah, for sure them.
I have no interest in them.
For once, since, since Giannis has stepped into his superstardom, I want to see him play against the fully healthy Warriors team. Like, I feel like somebody's always missing when we play them. I don't think he's played against Draymond since like 2018 or something crazy. Like he's never matched up with Draymond since I guess once in the 2020 season when it was like the fake Warriors.
That's wild. Yeah.
So I want to see them match up in a legitimately serious game. And I want to see the Warriors against the Clippers just because I just want to see how that matchup looks.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely those two teams.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Clippers I'm just really interested in because two of my favorite players are on that team, Kawhi and Paul George. So if the Warriors ever go down in the West, the Clippers are the team that I
so crazy. You like Paul George and Kawhi, but don't like Jimmy. They like cousins.
Jimmy's like a little hybrid of them two, like
right?
Mixed, but like
they're they're like cousins. Go ahead. No, you're fine.
I don't like Jimmy. I really don't.
Fine. That's fine.
His persona
is it the
annoys me.
So, listen, I want him to let those go. Jimmy trying to be out here looking like me. He's gonna be pissed when he like goes to shoot and stuff, and like the weight is gonna throw him one way. Like let them go before we get out of training.
Let them go. Yeah.
They look crazy.
I am really interested for the Clippers. So, like I said, I'm obviously always rooting for the Warriors, but as long as it's not the Clippers who could possibly take us out. Like if for some reason Golden State didn't like go forward, then I'd be like Team Clippers. So I'm not like a Clippers fan, but I really Kawhi and Paul George are both my guys. Paul George might be the only other person I go hard for on the TL. Like I do Steph, not as much because like he didn't play, but like Justin knows people try to slander Paul George. I'd be listen.
2020 was a rough one for you. It was a rough one.
It was. I was like, I'm not gonna be talking about my guy. So yeah,
Jimmy too. No, not Jimmy. 2021 was rough for Jimmy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was gross.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I really am gonna be interested to see what the Celtics look like with Brogdon, and just like how they develop as a team. So of course I will obviously be looking forward to our rematch with them. I'm also really curious about, I mean, the Pelicans also interest me as a team, but I'm really curious about the Wolves. Like, is their IQ going to increase like as a team? Right? Because they really have a lot of talent on that team. I still don't think that they're gonna like win it all, but I feel like they should be a team that goes past the first round next year. They should be a playoff team. I don't even think that they should be like in the 7 or 8 spot. Right. So I'm just curious to see, I feel like if they're gonna really do anything as a team, even though I still think that Cat is their best player, I think Ant has to be the one that takes on like the leader role, kind of like what we were talking about with Brooklyn, Siobhan, and like, and it seems like he's okay doing it. It seems like he'd be telling Kat, like, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. But he's still so young himself, and like he has to grow. So I wish there was like someone older there. I kind of liked when Pat Bev was there, and he's not now. So I mean, we'll see. They did acquire Rudy, and like Rudy is a veteran, but people like I don't know how they're feeling about him. You know, like kind of around the league, players don't really seem to like Rudy or respect him. So I just don't know, like in the locker room, like if things are not like shaking out, like how his voice will go over. But he's had more postseason success, arguably, than them. So like whoever's there. So maybe he'll help in that. But I am curious to see some of their games and what kind of steps that they take. So I think those are the teams and games I'll be looking out for.
I like the Wolves. I do want to see what their front court looks like, how often they go to Cat and Rudy together, like at the same time, and where they play. Like Cat already wants to be on the perimeter, so do you then let Rudy slide in, anchor, and now you stretch it out that way? The Cat Anthony thing I think is interesting. I think Ant, I guess maybe could be their leader. I think Cat still has to be that team's best player. Yeah. But I do think Anthony has to be their first option. And then it'll be a Cat and then cascade down kind of to whomever else. I want to see Toronto. They just are just long everywhere, just 6'8" across 6'8" to like 6'11" just across the board. I want to see what that looks like. I think you said someone else that intrigued me.
You just reminded me of Orlando. They're built the same way. Everybody's like 6'8" and above.
But so much really less competent in putting it all together.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
I wonder how Cleveland will do this year too, because
large also.
They had an upsetting season with the injuries, but they, everyone's going to be a year older. Will Rubio be back?
Who?
Will Rubio be back?
I don't know. I didn't know what was wrong with him.
He tore his ACL.
Yeah, he tore his ACL.
You know that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're another interesting team in the East. What was that?
Gang signs Wall. He's been out for however long he's been. No, really, what does he contribute? What does he give to the Clippers? Because I think if he's, somewhat of just there, I think that's a good get for them.
The West is going to be fascinating to me because I don't really expect Portland to do anything. But I can imagine with this whole like Dame not being a superstar thing, like he's going to come into the season like all extra. You had like a year of him basically not here and people have sort of forgotten about him. They haven't been talking about him. So I expect to probably see a good season from Dame individually, but it'll be interesting to see, to me, what the Trailblazers do as well.
They'll be in the mix with the Lakers in the play-in.
Right, is Dame going to give us something different to his game, or is he just going to be shooting like from further away like that?
Yeah, as Dame gets older, I think his rim pressure game is going to continue to diminish.
And he's small, so like you got to get something else.
They got Simmons, who's athletic, young, and they got Jeremy, so I think they can. Their starting five is going to be all right, but their bench is kind of weak, even though they stole GB2 away. But
he's also little, I love him.
He is small.
Right. Yeah, they're going to be in that 10th range, 10th, 9th.
I love the strays at the Lakers, though. Woo, see, y'all was talking about me with Russ earlier, but the Lakers catching strays now. See,
I wonder if Charlotte matures. Like I want to see a matured LaMelo.
They off the chain down there.
I'm not even. Damn, I forgot all about Miles. Never mind.
Yeah, that's an unserious organization.
Wasn't Trez? Trez had some. Trez,
yeah, slinging.
Wow.
I know Michael Jordan is sick. Like what? Like why? Why is this the team that
I'm not gonna say my thoughts on your pod. We can talk afterwards.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, guys, this was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. Also, with my last minute request, I appreciate both of you so much. Siobhan, please let everybody know where they can find you and your work, each and everything, because she's amazing, y'all. Seriously, I know you heard the conversation.
I wish it was more places for you to find me. I'm on the timeline all the time. Just search me in like the little thread emoticon, and those are some of what I do.
What is your handle? It's okay. I put it on the show, but you should tell them anyway.
At Great Matter, great with the 8. I'm Hoopstresses with Nat. I am over on Miami Heat Beat. Those are my guys down there. I have a show called Needle to the Groove where I just do nothing kind of but breakdowns. We only have a couple episodes right now as I try to sort my head and get everything smoother on paper. So that is, I think, all that I'm at right now. So probably your best bet, catch me on the timeline and look for my threads. It's good in there.
Yeah, just follow Siobhan on Twitter. She's great, and you will get great basketball knowledge. You won't regret it. You'll be smarter for it. Justin.
I do some art stuff too, but
Justin, the package JG. I know your handle. Well, I know Siobhan's too, but the 8 always like confuses me. So y'all make sure you follow Justin. Golden Spaces. We'll be back at some point. It just hasn't been that much in the off season, really. Like, we're not just here to talk, y'all. So he's dropped in on a few pods. Things will be picking up soon, and you'll be hearing from us more soon on the timeline. And I think Justin is probably gonna like make some more appearances on All Nat. He's sort of becoming like my unofficial co-host. So I hope y'all are enjoying him so far on the show, because you're going to be seeing more of Justin as well. Fair, Justin? So I've just put him on the spot.
Fair. Did you even ask Justin? Does Justin know this?
Yeah, I'm all aboard. I'm on board.
All right, y'all. Well, we're gonna go because the WNBA Liberty game is about to start, and I want to tune in for that. Siobhan, are you rooting for anyone? I'm just watching. Like,
I'm rooting for Chicago. Shout out to them and Chicagoans all across.
Okay.
And Kai and Candace.
I am torn and conflicted because we have hoopstresses who represent both teams. So, and I live in New York. So, I don't root for New York for like any other team. So it feels like I should root for the Liberty, but I don't think that I am. I'm just like going to watch the game and just take it all in. Justin, were you like, do you watch the Mystics? Were you upset that they lost?
Yeah, but
what was up with that? Why did they throw away game 1? Did you see the first game?
I gotta go back and watch a little bit more, but
I need more offense. I don't have enough offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wanted that to be a 3-game series. I can't believe it had so much promise going in. We thought that was going to be one of the best series, and
can I say I'm genuinely not surprised by how it ended?
Yeah, no, whatever. Okay, well, yeah, let's go watch some WNBA. Thanks, guys, for being on. Guys, it's the off season, so every 2 weeks is another episode of All Nat. So thank you for tuning in so far for this off season. We'll be back unless something major happens. Until next time, take care, guys.